want to start off with a couple of announcements. If you haven't heard of us before, other than tonight's event, we're the Art Directors Club of Research and Scholarships for New Jersey students, Zeff of Zeff Design.
So I guess I'm your consolation prize tonight. So I'll do my best to be quick so that you can hear the work you came to see. I run a small podunk design firm here in town. It's the best they could come up with on short notice. Yes?
Does it bother you that Apple doesn't support Flash?
No, not at all. What's really great about HTML5 is that we're not programmers, none of the three of us are programmers, but as we're working with code, we find some of it to be fairly intuitive, meaning you could dive into this big text file full of gibberish and start to see patterns that allow you to edit things and change things, even as a non-programmer. Flash is terribly complicated. So social marketing was sort of started as as an ego trip. It's actually a very significant business driver.
Okay, I'm here with Joe Zeff, and he's speaking tonight because one of the end partners, couldn't come in. So Joe, let me ask you a question. Okay, aside from making this a pitch for your company, what do you do that sets you apart from everybody else?
Well, what we do at my company is we create iPad apps. So we're telling interactive stories on the iPad using design, using illustration, using animation, and really creating some compelling things for companies, for publications, and for individuals.
Now that the industry of communications is changing, and they're going from the old newspaper format into the digital upload and change format of the iPad and mobile, where do you see companies having to go?
I think it's much more about engagement. What it used to be is that you would print something and you would ask the consumer to receive it, to take in that content passively. Now it's a very active process. Now the challenge is to engage the user, to establish an interaction, a communication, a dialogue, and that's where these new tools are really being helpful for companies that need to market in a much more effective, aggressive way.
Present Ottaway from Brooklyn Brewery, the General Manager.
Thanks for having me here tonight. When these guys first called me, they said, well, we'd like you to present, do a whole presentation on branding. And I was like, me? So what I thought actually would be maybe more interesting is to keep it kind of very conversational, interactive. That's why we decided more of a kind of a Q&A session might be more appropriate. And please extend that out to you guys. If you've got questions as we're going along, feel free to jump up, throw a ball at me, whatever you need to do to get my attention. And let's keep it kind of interactive. I think it'll be sort of more fun than listen to me kind of go on all night.
Here's Eric Ottaway from Brooklyn Brewery, and welcome to New Jersey.
Thank you. Well, I actually live here in Montclair. So.
You used to live in Montclair?
I do live in Montclair.
Oh, you live in
Absolutely.
Okay, so
I'm a denizen of both boroughs.
Oh, okay. So I'm originally from Coney Island.
Very good.
And we used to have our own beer problems out in Coney Island. Usually getting it.
That's right. There's actually a tiny brewery in Coney Island now.
So now, what made you call it Brooklyn beer?
Brooklyn has a really interesting beer tradition. There used to be 48 breweries in Brooklyn in the year 1900. It's sort of a little known fact about Brooklyn, and over 10% of the beer that was produced in the U.S. was produced in New York City. So there's this old brewing tradition that existed in New York for many years until basically Schaefer and Rheingold were the last two breweries that went out of business in the mid to late 70s. And that was it for brewing in Brooklyn. And Steve and Tom, the original two founders, wanted to revive that tradition that was there. They believed strongly in it and called it Brooklyn. People thought we were absolutely crazy when we did that. Back in the late 80s, Brooklyn was still kind of on the out. It was not a sort of a sexy place that it is today, and people thought they were nuts to call it Brooklyn. But they believed in it, they stuck to their guns, and sure enough, 23 years later, they became became an overnight success. So most people, our marketing really consists of what we call event-based marketing. I'd much rather put a beer in your hand than have you see some ad somewhere. It's a much more kind of personal relationship. The craft beer movement in many ways is about rediscovering local kind of connections with local food producers. This goes way beyond just beer. It's across all kinds of consumer product segments, particularly in the food world. People like to know who makes what they're consuming. We receive probably 30 requests a day for donations to various charitable events. Art openings, charitable, such and such a foundation raising money for cancer, for whatever it is.